In the previous lesson, we have learned that fireworks are an example of a chemical change. Have you ever wondered how all the impressive colors and sounds are produced? At the end of this lesson, you should be able to state that chemical reactions involve heat change. Identify reactions involving heat loss. Identify reactions involving heat gain. Chemical reaction is a process that involves formation of new substances with new properties. Chemical reaction is closely linked to chemical change. Do you still remember the examples of chemical change? Discuss with your friends. Energy is lost or gained in every chemical change. The loss or gain of energy is usually in the form of heat. Chemical reactions involve heat change. All chemical reactions are accompanied by a change in energy. Some chemical reactions involve heat loss. Click on the mixture in the test tube on the left. They release heat to their surroundings. As a result, the temperature of the mixture in the test tube increases. On the other hand, some reactions involve heat gain. Click on the mixture in the test tube on the right. They absorb heat from their surroundings. As a result, the temperature of the mixture in the test tube decreases. Let us look at a few examples that show reactions involving heat transfer. When you go sightseeing in your family car, have you ever thought what kind of fuel that helps move the car? Right. Petrol is the fuel that moves the car.
Ouch!
Why do we feel hot when we touch the car bonnet? Discuss and click on the car bonnet. What happened to the petrol? The petrol is burnt inside the car engine. The engine temperature becomes very hot and the car bonnet becomes hot too. The combustion of petrol releases heat energy. It is released when chemical bonds between atoms are formed. This is the flame of a burning candle. If we let our hand get close enough to the flame, we can feel the heat from it. The burning candle is an example of a chemical reaction. The chemical reaction that occurs in a fire involves heat loss from the candle to the surrounding. The same phenomena occurs when a house is on fire. This is an example of a much larger scale of a chemical reaction. This heat loss releases energy to form a new bond between atoms. Can you name other examples of heat loss reaction? Now, let us have a look at some examples of reactions involving heat gain. What caused the egg to cook? When we fry the egg in a frying pan, the egg absorbs heat from the surroundings. The reaction that happens involves heat gain. energy is absorbed to break the chemical bonds between atoms. The delta H symbol represents heat energy change. Negative delta H represents the release of heat energy into the surroundings, while positive delta H represents the absorption of heat energy from the surroundings.
Now let us conduct experiments to study heat change in chemical reactions. Experiment 1 shows the reaction of sodium hydroxide pellets with distilled water. Experiment number 2 shows the reaction of ammonium chloride powder with distilled water. Experiment 1. Reaction of sodium hydroxide pellets with distilled water. Apparatus required are beaker, spatula, and a thermometer. Materials required are distilled water and sodium hydroxide pellets. Let us do this experiment. Firstly, pour 5 cubic centimeters of distilled water into a beaker. Drag and drop. Dip a thermometer into the water. Drag and drop. What is the reading of the thermometer? The reading is 30 degrees Celsius. Take out the thermometer and add a spatula of sodium hydroxide pellets into the beaker. Drag and drop. Dip the thermometer into the solution. Drag and drop. What is the reading of the thermometer now? The reading is 38 degrees Celsius. This means there is a change in temperature. There is an increase of 8 degrees Celsius. If you hold the beaker with your bare hands, you would feel the outer wall of the beaker is warmer. Let us look at the results of our experiment. From this experiment, what can you conclude when sodium hydroxide pellets dissolve in water? This experiment shows that dissolving sodium hydroxide pellets in water involves heat loss from the mixture to the surrounding. Experiment number 2. Reaction of ammonium chloride powder with distilled water. The apparatus required are beaker, spatula, and a thermometer. Materials required are distilled water and ammonium chloride powder. Let us carry out the next experiment. Firstly, pour 5 cubic centimeters of distilled water into a beaker. Drag and drop. Dip a thermometer into the water. Drag and drop. What is the reading of the thermometer? The reading is 30 degrees Celsius. Take out the thermometer and add a spatula of ammonium chloride powder into the beaker. Drag and drop. Dip the thermometer into the solution. Drag and drop. What is the reading of the thermometer now? The reading is 25 degrees Celsius. This means there is a change in temperature. there is a decrease of 5 degrees Celsius. If you hold the beaker with your bare hands, you would feel the outer wall of the beaker is colder. Let us look at the results of the experiment. From this experiment, what can you conclude when ammonium chloride powder dissolved in water? This experiment shows that dissolving ammonium chloride powder in water involves heat gain from the surrounding to the mixture. One. Which of the processes below releases heat? A. Evaporation. B. Melting ice. C. Boiling water. D. Fuel combustion.
Your answer is correct.
Two. Which of the reactions below absorbs heat? 1. Making plastic from oil products. 2. The rusting of iron. 3. Dissolving ammonium chloride in water. A. 1. B. 1 and 2. C. 1 and 3. D. 1, 2 and 3.
Your answer is correct.
3. Which statements are true about chemical reactions? 1. Energy is absorbed to break chemical bonds between atoms. 2. Energy is released to break chemical bonds between atoms. 3. Energy is released when chemical bonds between atoms are formed. 4. Energy is absorbed when chemical bonds between atoms are formed. A. 1 and 2. B. 2 and 3. C. 1 and 3. D. 2 and 4.
Your answer is correct.
4. What does negative delta H represent? A. Heat energy change. B. The chemical reactions. C. The release of heat energy into the surrounding. D. The absorption of heat energy from the surroundings.
Your answer is correct.
5. The definition of chemical reaction is A. A change which produces substance. B. A process that involves formation of new substances with new properties. C. Representation of a chemical equation using the symbols of elements. D. A change of physical properties without the formation of a new substance.
Your answer is correct.
Let us answer questions to reinforce our knowledge on heat change. Drag and drop into the space provided.
Your answer is correct. From this lesson, we know that Chemical reactions cause heat to be either absorbed or released to the surroundings. Some examples of chemical reactions where heat is released to the surroundings are combustion and dissolving sodium hydroxide pellets in water. Activities such as frying an egg and dissolving ammonium chloride powder in water causes heat gain.
A powerful chemical reaction blasts a space shuttle into Earth's orbit. This can help scientists to study more about astronomy and increase our communication links from the release of satellites.